Good evening and welcome to the Financial Week. I'm Javon Keys. The Jamaican dollar continues its upward trend with the US dollar selling for an average $147.77. The Canadian currency is trading at $118.09. $205.49 is the going rate for the pound and $176.28 for the euro. The JSE index advanced by 781 points today, while the junior market index lost 9 points. Advancing today were AMG Packaging and Paper Company, G West Corporation ordinary shares, Express Catering, SSL Venture Capital Jamaica, and Siboney Group. On the losing side were Epley's 7.5% shares due in 2024, Main Event Entertainment Group, Honeybun, Trans-Jamaican Highway US dollar shares, and Berger Paints, Jamaica. The Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, says Jamaica's economic indicators continue to exceed expectations. Now, at a media briefing today, EPOC co-chair Keith Duncan said for the April to July period, Jamaica saw increased government revenues. The details in this story. And we do apologize for that. We're going to come back to that in a bit. We won't have that story. In the meantime, we apologize for the absence of that story. Now, Mr. Duncan also indicated that during the expanded period of lockdowns that took place over the last month is likely to hamper the financial performance for the quarter. Now, he says more stable measures now in place should balance the results. And Mr. Duncan, and we do have that story now. Here is that EPOC press briefing from today.
We were able to garner tax revenues and grants of $225 billion, being $63.9 billion ahead of the same period last year, which shows that there is strengthening in the economy. Revenues and grants also exceeded the 2019 baseline year, which will of by $23.5 billion. But when we take into account the BOJ dividend, which was $32.6 billion paid in April, and you remove that from the $225 billion of tax revenues and grants, we would actually be about we'd be about $9 billion behind where we were in 2019.
Earnings for July stood out.
It was $9 billion ahead of budget, July's tax revenue, and this is strongly correlated to the fact that COVID restrictions were relaxed in the month of July.
Spending for the period was, however, behind.
Total expenditure was $229 billion, which was $7.3 billion lower than budget, marginally lower than budget.
Recurrent spending was also higher than 2019-2020 as money was pumped into the fight against COVID-19. Meanwhile, Mr. Duncan says the expanded period of no movement over the last month is likely to hamper the fiscal performance for this quarter.
It should impact tax revenues and for that period. I believe we had lockdown for a month. It should really slow the slow revenues for that month. And secondly, it does leave it leaves uncertainty in people's minds in terms of going forward. Can I really make the investment to keep my business up and running and there can be a lockdown? It creates uncertainties.
He says, however, the more stable measures in place now may balance those results. Meanwhile, Mr. Duncan, as did Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark a few weeks ago, indicated that the fiscal performance has allowed for the tabling of a supplementary budget for this fiscal year. Mr. Duncan says that is to be done and that should be tabled in Parliament on September 28, and we expect to be seeing more spending on health and the vulnerable. And that's it for the Financial Week. I'm Javon Keys. Good evening.